Good afternoon. I've got Cassandra Radcliff here, the author of Saving Upper Newport Bay, How Frank and Fran Robinson Fought to Preserve One of California's Last Estuaries. Good afternoon.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks
I'm
for having
glad that
me.
we had a chance to sit down during COVID while we're all at our homes and talk a little bit about this book. I hope people have a chance to read it, and if they haven't, we'll go through some of that. So this is your first book, though. How does it feel?
It feels really amazing. This is something that I never thought that I'd be able to do. Like it's been on my bucket list forever, write a book. And finally I get to cross it off my list. I've always wanted to do it, so this is really exciting.
That's fantastic. See, myself, I'll run a marathon and check that off my to-do list. That writing a
Mhm.
book is not on my bucket list. I'm really proud of you for doing this.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
for those who, maybe haven't read Upper Newport Bay, the book yet, can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, so it starts out, the story begins pretty much with a young boy named Jay Robinson, and he's riding his bike. It's 1963. They live, him and his family live in this area that we're looking at right here on the bluffs of Upper Newport Bay, just a couple days after this. And he sees where he goes to the beach all the time, he sees these private property signs up. So they're all around the bay. He can't get into the bay. He goes back. He tells his parents, oh my gosh, there's this sign up. I can't go play. And his parents, Frank and Frances Robinson, they're very upset by this because they moved into the area so that their kids could play there. And so they start on this path to saving the bay. And it's actually a lot more interesting than you would think going into it. There's a court case, there's an environmental disaster that goes on, not in the bay, but up north, that kind of sets everything in motion. It's just a fascinating story. So definitely go check it out and read it.
Yeah, so these Frank and Frances Robinson, was this their job? I mean, were they environmentalists? Were
No,
they?
they started out just wanting to go to the beach. Any person who lives by the beach, you want to have access to it. So Frank was an engineer, and Frances was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and they had two kids, and they were just a normal family living in Newport Beach, and they kind of fell into this. And it became their mission, but no, it wasn't their jobs. They dedicated a lot of their time to this for it not being their jobs.
Wow. And it took them a while to sort of save the bay here.
Yeah,
How
decades.
long did that process take for them?
Well, I guess they started, I believe, late 1963, and then it was in the early 70s that they kind of started seeing their victories, and then they added property over time. And they were still fighting for, parts of the bay and different aspects of saving the bay in the 90s. So it was basically from when they started until their deaths.
Wow. And so it took them a long time. How long did it take you to really go through and prepare for writing a book and get through all of the history that you went through to prepare?
Well, for me, it was a blip compared to the amount of work that they did. Um, so actually, physically, like sitting down and writing the book only took, I would say, maybe 4 months. I work full time, so I would come home and write every night and on the weekends. But leading up to it, like you and I and other volunteers and board members, we had meetings about it, and other volunteers, especially Frances Cork and Annie Quinn, they did a ton of research and interviews before I even came aboard. So I was offered this lovely box full of just materials to go through. So that took me maybe a month or so just to get through that. Lots of Google searches. What you see on the screen is like pictures from the UCI So I went there a few times. They went there a few times to get information. So it was a lot to go through. The whole court transcript is there. If you're interested, anyone can go into the archives and go check them out. So,
Yeah,
but
this is at
yeah,
UCI, right?
yes, at UCI, you have to make an appointment. So if you go to the library, you can't just go up to the top floor and all this stuff. You have to make an appointment and view it there. But it's really fascinating stuff. There's lots of photos there too. And this here I thought was interesting because it had everybody's signature there. So you can see
Yeah,
both
I
Frank
love
and
it.
Francis were
That is really a
involved.
piece of history. What
Yeah.
piece of documentation was that from?
I think this was just when they filed something, and there's tons of these in there. It's just so much paperwork that they had to file for just throughout the court case. And they filed other things. So this had to have been from the actual court case. And
Yeah, it looks like
was
one of the state court cases, the local or regional court case. That's amazing. You've got Frank and Fran there.
Yeah, it was filed in 1969, and then they finally like went to the courthouse. It was the new courthouse at the time in Anna in 1972. It was about a 2-week trial. So, and they
Wow.
had to sign everything, because they were interveners in the case, which if you read the book, you'll know what an intervener is versus a plaintiff and stuff like that. It's a different kind of case. It's not like a criminal case that we all think of. So that even just that aspect is interesting
Yeah,
in this
a
book.
lot more in the book. I can't wait for everybody to read it if they haven't, read it already. That's fantastic. And so, being your first book, when were you first interested in writing?
Um, um, I started writing like in a journal probably in middle school and coming up with like really dumb fiction stories, but I actually got in the newspaper in middle school because I wrote it was like historical fiction about, I lived in Pennsylvania at the time, so there's a garden, it's called Longwood Gardens, and there's this like, I think it's a clock tower, a bell tower or something, and I was like, oh, it's haunted. So I wrote a scary story about it, and because it was local history, they published it in the paper. So I guess I've always
uh,
been interested in local history and writing, but everything in this book is true. That was all made up.
but you have had this passion for local history, and then this is a
Yeah.
really big part of Southern California and Newport Beach, and
Yeah, and everything's so interconnected too. So you'll learn history about other stuff that isn't exactly connected to this, but it's kind of on the periphery. Um, yeah, the local history is just, it's always been interesting to me.
yeah. Well, I'm glad we were able to document this here. So I know that it took you about four months to write the thing, but you also work for a publishing company, you said. And can you tell our audience a little bit about how a book like this gets published?
So I work for, it's called Quarto Publishing. You can visit the website at quartonos.com. That's KNOWS, Quarto Knows. And you can see my cat back here. Um,
And and and
Kitty.
and then
Um,
a dog passed out right
there we
there.
go.
Our animals do
She
everything with us these days.
distracted me here, but yeah. So at Quarto, we publish. Our imprint, we publish learn to draw books, or how to craft, or like, so it's artistic stuff. It's basically art instruction. So what we'll do, it's a little bit different from like fiction or the books that you probably typically read, is that we come up with an idea and pitch it to our acquisitions board, and if they approve it and it looks like we can sell this book in stores, then we'll get the green light to go ahead. And so we take our idea and ask people to contribute to it, and then we kind of put it together. I would say 4 to 6 months is about the time that it takes to create something, and then we'll package it up. We kind of lay it out, design it, we edit it, and send it to a printer in China, and they ship it across the ocean to warehouses and stores, and then it gets into readers' hands. So that works for us. And I know this one was different because it's a nonprofit. based on donations from the Keating family here, which you'll talk about. And it was printed more locally than than China. It was printed in Canada. So it could get to us a little faster, and coming across the whole ocean takes months to get here. So yeah, it's a little different too with marketing and how we're promoting it. Everything's different because of COVID, but it's just more of a local thing here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we wanted to put these up here for Newport Bay Conservancy, relying on volunteers. We don't have thousands of dollars in the bank account or anything like that. So, you know, to get some of these works done, like this book, and being able to share it, you know, we still, it's out of our wheelhouse. We love environmental education. And so with the Keating family, who Jack Keating was one of our presidents for a significant decade. You know, his family really loved this story and loved Saving the Bay. And so his family donated in honor of him to start to give us the seed money to do this book. And that's really how things happen around the Bay, with connections and with our friends and our neighbors. And Jack lived in the Bluffs, and it was nice for him and his family to do that. So, you know, we loved Mr. Keating and his entire family for what they've done. And that really helped us in sharing our story.
Yeah, and I think that's great that everyone who worked on it has to do with the Bay. I mean, I'm a volunteer, and, you know, Jack was the president for the longest time, and, you know, everyone on the board was involved, and other volunteers. You know, it was a group effort from people from the Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, you know, for yourself, as you were a child, did you always want to write and work in publishing and stuff like that?
Well, when I was really little, I liked writing, but I thought that I would do it for a living. So when I was really little, I wanted to be a veterinarian. But then I figured out, oh, like, that's kind of gross. I didn't like medicine is not my thing. So I wanted to then be a music teacher. And then when I went to college, that's what I went to college for. And I got really intimidated by music theory. More like math oriented than I thought it was. And then I just kind of freaked out and changed my major to English, and it just worked out so well that I wanted to be a technical writer. I stuck with English. I got a technical writing certificate. I learned a little bit about grant writing, and that's kind of how we started talking about this project, was because of my grant writing kind of background. I was just trained in it. I don't have a ton of experience, but through that certificate, I had to intern somewhere, and I knew someone who worked in a magazine, so it just kind of fell into place. And it turns out that I actually like writing nonfiction a lot more than fiction. Not that great at coming up with interesting stories, but when I see an interesting story that actually happened, I like to weave it into a story and tell it kind of in a, that the story arc makes sense, have interest in certain points, and get the characters, all the people. So that's kind of how that evolution happened. So the fact that I got to write this story was like a dream come true. It's one of my favorite nonfiction books is Radium Girls. I recommend everyone read that, and a court case in it too, and interesting people and history. So it was I took that book and kind of tried to use it as inspiration for as I was writing this. So
Wow, I love it. Absolutely.
it's all in
It's
it.
a great piece of local history, and to weave that and be part of your, profession. We're lucky people, absolutely, to do.
It's a big puzzle piece. It all worked out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you write, you work for a publishing company, you edit, you do a little bit of everything. What do you do when you're not writing?
Well, I used to do a lot of things out of the house. I would go to the Bay a lot more often and volunteer there, or go out skiing or go to Disneyland. But, since March, I haven't really done any of that. So I've embraced all the indoor stuff, which is, I've been reading a lot and baking different things and studying all the foreign languages I can get my hands on and just sort of trying to entertain myself until I can get back out there.
I love it. Well,
Can't wait for Disneyland.
we had to dig up some pictures of Cassandra here because love for the Bay and local history just doesn't start out. You have to find it and search for it, and we love that you got to share us some of these pictures. Can you tell us what's going on in these guys?
Yeah,
Like you're doing a little bird watching.
This is really exciting. So the first time I ever went to the Bay was December 2013. Yes, I wrote it down, 2013, because I always forget, when did I first start volunteering there? So in 2013, I was like, I had, I talked about my bucket list. I had all these lists I wanted to do. I wanted to see 100 different bird species and, name them, identify them, take pictures. And that's me doing that. First time. On the left, there is the first time I ever went to the Bay because I Googled it and saw that there were a lot of birds there. So that's how I kind of, got to know the Bay in the first place. But then another thing I wanted to do was volunteer. So I'm volunteering just kind of one-time things all over the county. And it turns out that I really like Coastal Cleanup Day. So you can see I'm wearing the shirt from, I did a cleanup day in Lake Forest. That was Aliso Creek. That one, but then this was 2014. I think that was my first voluntary event at the Bay, and then I just fell in love with it then, and came out on second Sundays, and became like an actual OC Park volunteer, so I could keep coming, and that's my little badge there, and and I was doing the water toss, watering the cactuses and pulling weeds and things, and I just love it.
I love it. So for people that may not know and want to get interested in volunteering, there are so many one-time events around the county. And then how we work, one of the landowners of the Upper Newport Bay is OC Parks, and they have a really great partnership with Irvine Ranch Conservancy and us. And they train and deploy volunteers to be sort of environmentalists and do things all across Orange County park land. Absolutely. So
and the website is so easy to use. What do I want to do? You can search what's near you, and and I think the Bay is just so fun because there's so many different opportunities that you can do. And basically every day of the week, obviously when COVID is over with and we can all get back together, just anyone, you can do anything there, and you can socialize with people in the Muth Center, or you can be by yourself and pull weeds, or out on the water and be in a kayak. It's a really great place. So
yeah, we love it just as much as all those, hundreds and thousands of animals that live there and call it their home. But so there is Orange County Parks. You can go to Let's Go Outside, or you can go to newportbay.org to look at the events that happen in the Bay. And then there's other events in your backyard. Like you said, you participated in Coastal Cleanup Day in Lake Forest, so they had a cleanup day site. I know that Coastal Cleanup Day this year is going to look a little different with COVID, but everybody is encouraging folks to clean up in their backyards and go locally and do what we can to eliminate trash and waste and use more recyclables. How you doing with COVID doing that? I'm trying.
Oh, recycling and all. Yeah, I think a lot of us have guilt, about all this plastic we're using, and trying not to go to the store and getting more things delivered. And, the plastic bag ban has been lifted, and I'm very disappointed in myself, but then it's, I don't want to get sick either. So, we'll have to make up for it. All the plastic we've used. But we can still recycle.
Yeah, these are great restoration events. Like both of these, you're the, there's other restoration going on. There's plenty of room at the bay to spread out. So we're really excited once COVID gets back over to do a little smaller event. So just
Mhm.
we'll keep everybody posted. But we can't wait for you to get back out there too.
We'll hang in there
That
until then.
mustard is piling up. Oh gosh. And so when you are at the Bay, can you tell me like what was one of your least favorite and best experiences? I love finding these pictures. Can you tell me a little bit what's going on here?
So I've never had a bad day at the bay, but I put up the kayaking photo because it was the one and only time, at least so far, that I've ever done the kayak sweep volunteer job. And it's only because my muscles hurt so bad the next day that I picked as, the worst experience, but I still loved it. I had so much fun, but it's a lot of lifting and paddling, and yeah, I was so tired. I
Yeah.
was thinking, I'm not much of a help out here. If someone's in trouble, I'm not going to be able to swim and get them or tow them back to shore. So would do it again, but as a guest. I don't think I would
Yes. I mean,
until I start lifting some weights.
that's why, we each have our specialty, right? So,
Hmm.
if people really like kayaking, like fitness, it's definitely hard
Yeah.
work. There's a group we normally offer the kayak tours on Saturday and Sunday mornings. With but with COVID right now, we're kind of taking it easy. But maybe it's giving a little respite for all the animals that are there. They can, hang out
Yeah.
and do their own thing. But yeah, it's a fun experience. And then what's going on the other side there? That's one of the cleanup activities, huh?
So on the left, I believe you're in that photo.
Oh
On
my
the
gosh,
top, I think that's you. So
it's
this was
long hair. Yeah.
long hair. This was one of the cleanup events. I don't think it was cleanup day, but we went out and picked up stuff. And I remember getting in this little boat and having to go over to what I called Garbage Island, because if you can see the floor there on the bottom, it was just covered in garbage. And something happened with someone else's boat. I don't remember this. Maybe you'll remember, but this boat had to go away for a while. So we were on this island, stuck on the island. I thought it was so funny for like 45 minutes, just picking stuff up, and before the boat came back, and then we could all get back off. So I don't know why. I thought that one was really fun, and everyone there was having a great time that day. And they didn't want to leave, but as the tide was coming in, we were like, okay, we gotta get you off
We're
this
losing
island.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't leave you here.
I,
So
I
that
know.
was my favorite.
Have to go home. Yeah, all of that trash is really in our watershed. The 150 square miles around our community. So it's really important that we just try to
Yeah.
reduce our footprint. I mean, look at all those little pieces of styrofoam. I mean, if I
Yes.
was OCD, I mean, I wouldn't be able to stop either. I mean, those things get small. It really puts it in perspective, how important volunteers are, but how important we are in reducing our waste, because we don't need it.
No.
Absolutely, it's really powerful. Well, we'll get everybody back out there, because I'm sure, it's not that people aren't, you know, using trash and still using trash. And we'll get out there hopefully in September.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can't do events like this time of year anyways, so we're not missing much, right?
Hmm.
It is nesting season for a lot of our endangered species at the Bay, like this one, the Ridgway's rail. So even if there is trash and debris this time of year, we can't really pick it up quite yet anyways. And we wouldn't want to. Look at that thing. So adorable.
Yeah, I think another one of the cool events that I did was by where the nests are. They're man-made Ridgway's rail nests, and I was with a group of students, and I thought it was kind of fun to be able to point those out and be a little bit closer, because usually in nesting season you can't go traipse around. You're not allowed to walk where the birds are nesting. So we got to see one up close, and it was a little teaching moment. So and they learned all about the Ridgway's rail.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. And I really kind of want to tie it back to the book. I know that, Frank and Fran Robinson weren't necessarily in the very beginning thinking about the environment when they were thinking about the bay. You said, their son just wanted to play along the shoreline. And so, it's just an interesting space how we've come to know about the environment and really strive for the balance between nature and people and recreation here. I wanted to leave this slide up because I thought it was the most appropriate. This is Frank and Fran. It's some of the undated photos. I know the book has, a color insert in the middle with some of these photos and some others that we didn't want to show today because we want people to get that book and take a look for themselves and read it for themselves. But, I kind of wanted to end with you and kind of ask the question. So who are you more like, Frank or Fran?
Well, I'm going to say I'm like both of them in certain ways. And one of the things is that, like I said, I first went to the Bay to just bird watch. I didn't really think about volunteering there. Specifically, I didn't know about anything about the Bay other than that there were birds there. And the more that you learn about something, the more you care for it. So like that, I feel very much like them. But if I had to choose between the two, I would say I am more like Frances because her strength was writing letters and kind of convincing people that they should help the Bay. So I kind of identify with her there. And she wanted to save the Bay for future generations, for her children. I don't have any children, but, obviously I want the Bay to be available for the next generation of people and the next generation forever. And I think, Frank wanted that too, but he was more of a detailed kind of guy. He would look through maps. He would, try to find like everything within the law or, not play politics, but he was more into how do we make politics work for us. So I do feel that he was more like detail oriented, whereas Frances kind of seemed like, I'm going to write this letter and be more, big picture. But, I'm like both of them in certain ways. It's a hard question to answer.
Aw. Well, I love it. I hope that other people will enjoy from reading the book and, to be inspired to maybe go volunteer or just understand a little bit more about the Bay and what's there. So, I really appreciate your time today and I look forward to having others read the book and learn more about what's in their backyard.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. It was so nice talking to you. Everyone go get the book, read it, enjoy it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.